Hear what Speaker Johnson has to say on the subject, if he says anything at all on it, apparently plotting to circumvent her concerns and not give us the SAVE Act, not give us the Save America Act. So add to your phone list, add to your phone calls, the Speaker of the House and your United States House Representative. Keep the pressure on. You have agency. Use it. Use it to the fullest extent that you can to place pressure on these guys to get something meaningful passed for us. You know what time it is. You recognize this. It's high time for members of Congress. It's high time, rather, for members of Congress to recognize this too. Let me get to some more optimistic news today. Yesterday, the United States Department of Justice announced one of the most epic indictments that we've seen in a very long time. The Southern Poverty Law Center has just been served with an 11-count indictment. An 11-count indictment for funding, are you ready for this? Neo-Nazis and the KKK. The left wing, again, Radical Operations, Southern Poverty Law Center, has been funding extremism in the United States through a deliberate money laundering scheme in order to stoke hate crimes to serve as a justification to fleece left-wing donors. That's what the United States Department of Justice revealed to us yesterday. This is what they're alleging in this 11-count indictment. Here is the current Attorney General Todd Blanche announcing this indictment yesterday at the Department of Justice. Take a look.
Today, a few minutes ago, in the Middle District of Alabama, a grand jury returned an 11-count indictment charging the Southern Poverty Law Center with 6 counts of wire fraud, 4 counts of bank fraud, and 1 count of conspiracy to commit money laundering. According to the charges in the indictment, the SPLC is a nonprofit entity that purports to fight white supremacy and racial hatred by reporting on extremist groups and conducting research to inform law enforcement groups with the goal of dismantling these groups. As the indictment describes, the SPLC was not dismantling these groups. It was instead manufacturing the extremism it purports to oppose by paying sources to stoke racial hatred. The indictment describes this conduct in detail, but one troubling example is that the SPLC was paying a member of the leadership group that planned the Unite the Right protest in Charlottesville, Virginia in 2017 that resulted in the death of 1 person and injured dozens more.
Yes.
This particular person being paid by the SPLC allegedly received approximately $270,000 over the course of 8 years. In total, according to the indictment, between 2014 and 2023, SPLC paid at least $3 million to 8 individuals at least. These individuals were affiliated with the Ku Klux Klan, United Klans of America, National Socialist Movement, Aryan Nations Affiliated Sadistic Souls Motorcycle Club, the Nationalist Socialist Party of America, Nazis, and the American Front.
Are you listening to all that? You listening to that? They're funding the Nazis, the KKK. They funded the deadly results of the Unite the Right garbage 2017 in Charlottesville. They did all of that. They did all of that. And then they tried to stick Donald Trump with the blame. Do you remember? I've got to emphasize something. How epic this is. How completely epic this is. And how this is literally what I voted for. You and I have been asking for the Justice Department to go after the left-wing funding schemes that have led to complete chaos in this country. This indictment yesterday is just on another planet in terms of its excellence. It's enough to make anybody a conspiracy theorist. The Southern Poverty Law Center, a central plank of the left's operations, was funding the KKK, neo-Nazis, and deadly violence. They were funding all of that? What a beautiful indictment. What a beautiful pursuit of justice. And this has been assigned, by the way, to a Trump-nominated judge. And that's causing panic in the media that this whole case is going to prevail, that we'll actually see justice prevail. I've got more details exactly on what went down here. We'll hear from FBI Director Kash Patel in just a moment. There's a lot to get to all ahead on this edition of Vince. I know it's been an emotional roller coaster because we start with the left and the success they've had with some of their fraudulent rigging schemes. And now we're taking down one of the fraudulent rigging schemes. I love that news. More ahead on the program. You know, I'm excited to tell you about the world's #1 expanding garden hose. And they're a great sponsor of our program. They've got a great new product, the Pocket Hose Ballistic. How cool does that sound? How cool is that? You know, I used to have to replace my old garden hose every year because it would get ratty, it would kink, tangle, burst. But the Pocket Hose Ballistic, that's the upgrade I've been looking for. It's great. It's the toughest pocket hose ever built, reinforced with a liquid crystal polymer used in bulletproof vests. That's some heavy-duty stuff to get some water through your hose. Now, I don't baby the hose. I drag it right across the driveway, the yard. We yank it around tight corners. We leave it in the sun. The Pocket Hose Ballistic handles it all. Plus, it comes with the pocket pivot for total freedom of movement at the spigot with full 360-degree rotation. So I move, the hose follows, the water flows. And now for a limited time, when you purchase a new Pocket Hose Ballistic, you'll get a free 360-degree rotating pocket pivot and a free thumb drive nozzle. So just text Vince to 64,000. You ready? That's Vince to 64,000. You'll get your 2 free gifts with purchase. Text Vince to 64,000. Message and data rates may apply. Thank you also to Dose. Great operation. If you've been listening to Dan lately, you've been hearing him talk about how wonderful Dose has been in his life. It's great. You know, there seems to be a rising liver health crisis in America right now. And for the average person, it might be hard to completely avoid. Modern life moves very fast. Stress is high. Diets aren't perfect. And lots of folks have realized that they need to pay closer attention to how they support their overall wellness. And more Americans are turning to gentler alternatives with ingredients they actually recognize, like CoQ10, ginger, pomegranate, and amla. And one of those alternatives is Dose for cholesterol. Dose for cholesterol. It's a clinically backed cholesterol support supplement that supports triglycerides, HDL, and total cholesterol levels. Now, people on our team have been using Dose, and they love it. They've been encouraged by what they've seen in their blood work. I have it here in the house. I drink it. I haven't done the blood work yet, but it's great. I think it tastes great. It is great. And I love seeing the great results. And I only talk about products that have results that we actually believe in here. So new customers can save 35% on your first month of subscription by going to dosedaily.co/Vince or entering Vince at checkout. That's dosedaily.co/Vince. 35% off your first month subscription. These statements and products have not been evaluated by the FDA, and they're not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease or condition. All right. Thank you to Dose for being great. All right. Let me tell you a little bit about what's going on now with this SPLC indictment. So epic indictment, just an absolutely epic indictment. Here's Kash Patel giving us more detail yesterday about how all of this was meant to astroturf hate crimes, to invent hate crimes, an entire operation, Jussie Smollett style, doing this at scale. Cut 3, watch this.
We're here today is to announce what the general just told you. The Southern Poverty Law Center, in a massive sweeping indictment, has been charged with allegations of fraud and using the banking system to perpetrate that fraud. I just want to talk about a couple of brief things here. The Southern Poverty Law Center themselves advertise to raise money to dismantle violent extremist groups for a period of at least a decade. They use their donor network to raise money to purportedly dismantle violent extremist groups. However, the SPLC, the Southern Poverty Law Center, used the money they raised from their donor network to actually pay the leadership of these very groups. I just want to say that again. They used the fraudulently raised money by lying to their donor network, thousands of Americans, to go ahead and actually pay the leadership of these supposed violent extremist groups. The groups, as the general laid out, include the Ku Klux Klan, the United Klans of America, Unite to Right, National Alliance, the National Socialist Movement, the Aryan Nation Motorcycle Club, and the National Socialist Party of America, and also the American Front. In at least one of these matters, our investigation revealed that funds were used to facilitate the commission of further state and federal offenses, totaling over $3 million. Furthermore, our investigation revealed that the Southern Poverty Law Center, on top of perpetuating this widespread, decade-long, multi-million-dollar fraud, conducted more criminal activity. They attempted to hide their criminal activity from our financial banking network. They set up shell companies and entities around America so that the financial institutions that we rely on as everyday Americans were deceived in believing that money was not coming from the Southern Poverty Law Center in the perpetration of this scheme and fraud, but rather fictitious entities they stood up to perpetuate this ongoing fraud. This is a serious and egregious violation of a group that purported to dismantle violent extremist groups, but in turn actually only fueled the hatred. By President Trump's administration, we're thankful to the president for his leadership and funding of not just the FBI and DOJ, but his commitment to go out there and wipe out fraud and conspiracy and waste and abuse wherever it occurs, including the Southern Poverty Law Center. Even though this money was made to appear to be coming from legitimate people and legitimate entities, we, the FBI, with our great partners at the Department of Justice and in the state of Alabama, were able to comb through a decade worth of material, a scheme that took a decade to build, so that we were able to follow the money, because money never lies, and they got caught. As the Attorney General said, these charges are varying. They are widespread and wide-ranging, and this investigation is very